Welcome to Think Like a Dog podcast, where we explore dog behavior and psychology-based training to help your dog achieve their full potential. All right, welcome back to Think Like a Dog podcast. And today it's just Jill and I here. Millie's not on this episode, but Jill is our puppy expert. So we've did an episode in the past where we talked a lot about puppies, but this episode we're going to dig a little bit deeper and go over some questions that we had from our listeners. And with the new year, lots of people have new puppies. I know. So I know there's a lot of questions out there that you guys have, and you may just need a little bit of guidance. So Jill, thank you for being on this episode today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm excited. I always love a chance to talk about puppies. So
Yeah. And you do a puppy class, right? Like in the center. How
right.
can you tell us a little bit more about the puppy class, first of all, before we start?
Yeah. So I typically have them one class to two classes every month. They last four weeks long, and usually my group is about 5 people big, and I like to keep the class size very small so I can make sure I'm working with each individual person a little bit. But each class is a different topic. So we have our leash walking, rules and boundaries, place, and then commands, and really any other things that we kind of missed along the way. Um, but it's a really great class, and I love how supportive everyone is of each other during the class. We do a lot of different confidence building exercises throughout it, and everyone always really cheers each other on. So
I
it's
love
very
that.
fun.
I love that. And Millie always jokes around that she could never be in the puppy class because she won't be able to focus. And I
Yeah.
100% agree. I would never be able to just walk in a room full of puppies and be like serious. But
Mm-hmm.
it's awesome for, new dog parents or even starting over. You have an older dog, you just got a new puppy.
Mm-hmm.
Building this confidence in them is the biggest thing, and that's what Jill focuses on with puppies. It's all about confidence building. And that's why she even said commands, it's like the last thing they work on in puppy class, because first is teaching your puppy how to be confident, how to grow into this confident dog that knows how to practice calm, knows how to shut their brain off, knows how to deal with stress. And your puppy is going to go through stressful times. It's going to
Mm-hmm.
happen. And it's a brand new world. Everything's scary to them. And if you don't socialize your puppy the right way, if you don't build that confidence with them, then that's where the reactivity starts to grow. And then all of a
Right.
sudden, you have this dog that's afraid of people, of other dogs, that doesn't really know how to deal with their emotions. We recently rescued a beagle, and he's now part of our Best Chance program. And his story is pretty sad. He never really had any human contact. They were using him as like a hunting dog, and now he's at that stage. They estimate him to be about 3 to 4, and he lacks so much confidence because he never had that. He never had
Mm-hmm.
that confidence builder, and he never had anyone to show him how to deal with stress. So everything's stressful for this dog. Like if you turn on the lights too fast, it's scary. Like the fans are scary. So the main
Right.
thing that we're working on with him, even as a bigger dog, is confidence building. So that's so important for all dogs at all stages. And I feel like a lot of this will even go into the older dogs that lacks that confidence. A lot of the questions we're going to go into, you guys will learn different ways to deal with that lack of confidence. So we'll go into the first question here, and they're going to be kind of all over the place. So we'll start touching on different subjects. But the first one, Jill, it says, I've heard a lot about fear phases in puppies. How would you guide a puppy in that stage? Any things to avoid?
Yeah. So puppies go through a few different fear stages. Their very first one is around the time where people typically bring them home, so around like 8 to 12 weeks. So it's important during that time that you're giving your puppy lots of direction. So I always recommend, like, when people bring their puppy home for the first time, keep a leash on them and don't let them just go run and explore the house right away. Um, So then you can also be intentional with what they're learning. So if you're letting your puppy run around the house and they run into something or hear weird noise, then there's no way for you to really work them through that, and that becomes kind of like a imprint for them. So it's important that you're constantly there, keeping a leash on them and working them through and noticing any things that are bothering them. Want to make sure people avoid is one, giving too much freedom, and then coddling the fear. So when you notice your puppy is really scared of something, it's important not to play into that fear. So for you to also make a big deal about it. And humans tend to do that through giving lots of affection. And baby talk, petting. So it's important that you work them through it and not just comfort them with that fear.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And I was going to say, we talk about it so many times. It's just the giving affection without intention. And we do that
Hmm.
so much with puppies. It's like we want to cuddle them. We want them to be with us all the time. Like we want them on our laps. And as soon as they cry, we want to make them stop crying. We want to help them through that. And we think affection is the answer to everything. And when you
Right.
tell like a new dog parent, like, no, that's really not, it's like
Right.
it's hard for you to process this, but it's so important for your dog to look at you for direction. And again, we talk about this all the time as well. But when Jill said like guiding them and making sure they're not having too much freedom, even when we adopt out our dogs, like we tell the new families the same thing, like always keep the
Hmm.
leash on, because that leash, keeping that leash on your dog while you still have a close eye on them, will help you kind of direct them without having to scream out their name and like nag them the whole day, right? Like so you're like screaming
Right.
your dog's name and saying no, no, no until no becomes just a word and it doesn't mean anything. But how many times, Joe, have you told a new family like, hey, how about you keep the lead on your dog and like you don't have to do all the screaming and talking? Like,
Hmm.
and their reaction was just like, what? What do
Yeah,
you
yeah.
mean? Right?
I get a lot of weird reactions. Yeah, people are like, "In the house? You want me to keep the leash on in the house?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's gonna be a lifesaver." Another big reason why I do that is, like Andrea said, so you're not continuing to repeat yourself with your puppy. You're not just nagging them all day. But what that actually does, if you nag your puppy all day long, is it turns all those commands and things that you're telling your puppy just into background noise. Because if you're saying something and they're not listening and you just repeat it, they're no longer going to think that that word means anything at all. Um, so it's important to have that leash to back you up on anything that you say.
Yeah. And we say, and even on recall and anything else
Hmm.
that you're trying to teach your dog, the more you say it, the less it means to them, right? Like if you say
Right.
it once and you show them what they need to do, then you're putting a meaning in that word. And then when you just say it again, and then all of a sudden it just doesn't mean anything. And that was something I really needed to work on with my dogs,
Hmm.
because I have this issue of just talking and saying their names and saying no and stop. And I constantly have to check myself like, wait, let me actually get up and show them what they need to do. Like move them out of the couch or like get their leash and bring them to me if they're not listening. We have
Hmm.
a yard, like a fenced in yard, and our dogs are constantly running around, like they get their free time, but when it's time to come back, I was always saying come, 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 and they were just blowing me off. I'm like, there's no way, they're not listening to me.
Hmm.
And then now I've told everybody involved with them, my mom Ozzy, I'm like, hey, if they don't come within the first time you say it, grab a leash and bring them to just bring them back.
Yeah.
And ever since we started doing that, it improved their recall so much, because now I can tell Bubbles come once and he will come back.
Right.
And if he doesn't, I grab the leash and I go, just so I don't take the meaning away from what come actually means.
Exactly.
So it helps so much. And dogs are smart. They're going to get it. Like, especially little puppies, and they're like looking for that
Hmm.
direction, they're going to get it so quickly if you really stay consistent and you check yourself and you're giving them direction. But now this
Mhm.
other one says, what are your thoughts on puppies showing resource guarding around food and biting?
Yeah. Um, that's something I hear somewhat often. And I feel like every time I hear it, it's always followed up with, "Well, I've been sticking my hands in their food, and I've been practicing taking away their food or their toys from them, and letting the kids play in their food." I hear all kinds of crazy things about that. And what I say is just not to mess with them at all. I recommend switching them to eating in their crate, giving them like 10, 15 minutes to eat their food, and then take it up once they're finished eating for that time period. Um, and then same thing with toys too. If your puppy is showing issues with toys, I would probably do this before they even showed issues, but I would keep all the toys up and only allow them to have them at certain times during the day when you can be watching them. And if they are showing any like aggression or reactivity around that, it's important to have that leash on then too, so then you can move your puppy away from it and then take the toy instead of having to like wrestle them for it.
Yeah.
Um, but typically when they're very very young, the issues aren't crazy because they're so small, but you don't want that to build, so it's very important to address that stuff and prevent that stuff when they're young.
Yeah, absolutely. And with the eating part is, trust me, you guys, like I was that person. My dogs never ate like out of their crate. Like I never thought about that. I'm like, they had crates and they used the crate, but eating was just never thought about them eating in the crate.
Mhm.
And it used to be such a mess because I used to put the food bowl down and then Max would come and try to eat Kane's food. And then Kane would eat Max. And it would be like, oh
Mhm.
my God, fire drill every day, fire drill.
Yeah.
Because we would try to feed them and it would be a constant issue. And as soon as you put your dog in the crate, the first few days they might hate it, they might not even
Mhm.
pay attention to the food, they might not eat it, but eventually they'll get it and they'll eat it, and it would be the best thing you did for you and your puppy, because now you put
Mhm.
a time on meal time. You put it down, they'll eat. If they don't eat, then something might be wrong with their tummy, gives you like an alert, but at least you have a time frame where that food is being put down and picked up. And it
Right.
helps so much in multi dog household. Even if you have an older dog and you bring in that puppy, the puppy's going in for the older dog's food, then that creates an issue. And it's like,
Mhm.
just put the food in the crate and put the puppy in the crate and let them eat. It
Right.
makes it so much easier when you create that routine with your dog.
For
Um,
sure.
Now, with the biting part, like they're mouthy and like with puppies being mouthy,
Mhm.
how long does that behavior, like, is it just when they're younger and like they're teething, like their teeth are going out, they're getting bigger? But then when they're a little bit bigger, like they're in the 8-month stage, but they're
Mhm.
still being mouthy, do you just correct that with like no, or
Mhm.
spatial pressure, or like taking your hand away? How would you deal with that in like an older puppy that's like
Yeah.
almost a year old?
Yeah, I think I would deal with it depending on the situation. With the leash, with spatial pressure, um I would never address it by sticking something else in their mouth, like a toy, to
Mhm.
like redirect them to that or to the toy. That's something I hear a lot, and I think that actually makes it a lot worse. Um, so yeah, using spatial pressure, using the leash, um even like redirecting them to place, or just trying to find the cause of the mouthing, because a lot of times puppies will start getting really mouthy, or even sometimes really yappy when they're just very tired. So maybe trying to give your puppy a break and then try again whatever you were doing after that break. Um, but I think the reason why biting becomes such an issue is because people don't correct it when it starts, and they try all these different ways to stop the puppy from biting, which is actually making it a little bit worse.
Got it.
And even when they're very young and they're teething, I would still make it a point that their mouths are on you all the time. um I mean, there's accidents and they're gonna mouth at you, but it's important to address it every single time.
Got it. Got it. And now, when it comes to their sleeping time? Like a lot of people ask this, how many hours a day should a puppy be sleeping? Like how
Hmm.
what's like a normal range? Cuz you just mentioned like when they get a little bit tired, that's when they need to be put in the
Yeah.
crate and that's when those bad behaviors are going to come out. So how long would you say they should actually be sleeping during the day?
Yeah. So puppies are supposed to have between 18 and 20 hours of sleep every day, including overnight. But a lot of them do not get that.
Yeah, I
And
was like,
that's
whoa, that's
why,
a lot of
yeah.
18 to 20, you said?
Mhm.
So that means they should
Mhm.
really only be awake for 4 hours.
Right.
Wow.
um
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of them don't get that. And that's sometimes why we see so many behavioral issues with a puppy because they're not spending enough time resting and relaxing. And the reason why I say that a lot of puppies don't get that much is because people aren't enforcing that. So they're
Mhm.
not putting them in their crates for nap time or enforcing a time for them to go to sleep on place. Um, and it's also important that we teach them how to relax so that they're able to fall asleep for that amount of time. Because if we just randomly start trying to put a puppy in the crate, they're not going to relax in it. But if we start with the crate from day one, they're going to have a really good understanding of what the crate is meant for, and you're going to be able to put them in there and have them fall asleep right away. It's also important that the time when they are awake, you're making sure that they're getting mentally and physically fulfilled. And for like little baby puppies, they don't need these like 3 mile walks. You could spend like 20 minutes in the driveway doing some leash work or um, doing different mental exercises with them around the house. But it's important that you spend that time with them when they're awake, doing something and practicing things, and then enforcing calm after that.
Got it. Got it. And now in the crate, when they're in the crate during the day, what is like a good time frame to put on when a puppy is in the crate during the day? Like would you say an hour
Yeah.
at a time or how long would you say?
It really depends on your puppy's age. So, however months old they are, plus one is how long they can hold their bladder for. So, if we have like a 3 month old puppy, we don't want to keep them in the crate for 8 hours. They're going to
Yeah.
have an accident. They're probably going to get really anxious because they have to go to the bathroom. Um, and it's really just not fair. So, I would say, however many hours or however many months your puppy is, plus one ish. So, like, a 3 month old puppy, I would say like 3 to 4 hours would be a good time period.
Oh, I never knew that. Okay. So
Mhm.
with them relaxing, I think it's important for people to realize like you have to set a routine with your puppy and you have to actually like show them how to relax. Like they're not like don't just wait for your puppy to fall asleep
Mhm.
to say like, oh, this is their nap time, or
Right.
just don't wait for them to tire themselves out to take a nap or like if they seem like they have all this energy and like there's no way they're going to fall asleep. That's why we always talk about the crate because then when you put them in, there might be a little bit of crying that happens, but then a few moments later, they're going to fall asleep and they're going to
Mhm.
fall into that routine. It's like putting a baby in the crib. Like they're going to cry, but they need their nap.
Right.
So, I mean, a lot of times we talk to people about this, even for our older dogs that get into a new home. Obviously, they don't need as much sleep, they don't need as much,
Mhm.
relaxing time, but they still need that decompression time. So we always talk about the crate and don't take that away if your dog loves it, and teach them that that's a safe place to be. And the crate is their
Mhm.
bedroom. So we want to start that from the very beginning. Um, now,
Um
yeah,
Sorry,
yeah.
kind of on that same topic, something that I've been seeing a lot lately actually is people with puppies or even older dogs that have all this energy. They spend so much time trying to find ways to better tire out their dogs, and they just keep like pushing it further and further. So they take them to day camp, then they take them on a run, and then they do all these different things when really they're just building their dog's stamina even more and making it way harder on themselves. So it's really important to notice how much exercise is really enough for your dog, and not overdoing it and making sure that you're teaching them to turn off after that exercise. So like like what I said, crating them and using place after their exercise. So you're teaching them that off switch.
Yes, absolutely. And I learned that because I was playing endless fetch games with my dog Max, and we would play
Mm-hmm.
fetch in the morning, in the afternoon, at night. I was like, we have to play 15 minutes of fetch every single, like we have to do it or else he's not going to be happy. And this dog would never get tired. I was like, Millie, what do I do? He's not getting tired. She's like, stop playing fetch or play it in a way that he has to learn something from it. Like he's going to
Mm-hmm.
have to practice facial pressure. He's going to have to practice giving you, um, looking at you and learning how to acknowledge you first before just
Right.
barking for the toy. So there's a lot there. I mean, that you can take it so many different ways when you're doing exercises with your dogs, and that doesn't require like 20 minutes of fetch games. It could be like 5, but you're doing like a very intentional game with them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Now, this one here says, can you tell if a young puppy is going to be social or dog aggressive?
Um, Really, you can't. You can start to know as they get older, but if you're picking a puppy from like a litter of really tiny puppies, you cannot tell based on
Mm.
just how they're acting around their other litter mates.
Is it
Um,
when dogs are like
yeah.
social or dog aggressive? Is that learned or is that just their personality?
Um, I think there's some debate on that. I think sometimes genetics and breed can play little parts in that, but a lot of times it is learned. It's based on the experiences they have. It's based on their relationship with their owner. Um, so I think both, a
Both,
little bit
yeah.
of both.
And also like maybe I think some dogs are more like sensitive, right? Like they
Hmm.
don't have like they don't have that wiggle room like what we talk about. Like they need a lot of structure and like
Right.
boundaries and they need a lot of that to be able to become that social dog,
Right.
whereas some dogs can have a little bit less and still be like a social butterfly. I
Hmm.
wonder that too, because I'm like, is there a way to really see a puppy and be like, oh, this one's going to be super friendly or this one's not? But it's
Right.
just, it depends. I think a lot of people get puppies and they come up with this like long list of reasons why they have a puppy, and one of them's like, oh, the breeder said they're going to be great with children and they're going to be great with
Hmm.
this and that and the other, and it's like a lot of that is learned. So if you don't like
Right.
teach your puppy, even though the breeder might say they're going to be great with the kids, but you're not teaching them like
Hmm.
boundaries, calm, all these things, they're not really going to be great with children, and that's
Right.
when they fall into those issues.
Hmm.
um okay, so how much play should you allow with a new puppy and other dogs? Are there certain ages or personalities in other dogs I should keep my new puppy away from?
Yeah, I think play should be last on your list for how your dog interacts with other dogs. Um, I think before you introduce any kind of play, you should make sure your puppy is okay with just calmly walking past other dogs or calmly sitting in a room with another dog, which is going to be hard. But it'll take time and it'll get better as they get older. But then that's when you can start experimenting with play more. Just because if the very first dog your puppy meets they get to play with and then it keeps continuing like that, every single dog they see, whether or not you're going to let them interact, your puppy's going to think that that dog is there for them to play with. So sometimes that's where like that lunging and reacting to like the excitement lunging and reacting to other dogs comes from, because they just think, oh, that dog's there to play with me, that dog's there to play with me. So I think it's important that you have a balance of play and not playing. Um, and then as far as like what type of dog to allow your dog to play with, I wouldn't have your new puppy play with only other puppies. I think I would have them interact with older dogs as well, just so they're learning rules and boundaries and play styles from a dog who's already kind of established all of their own, versus with a puppy they're very rude. So again, kind of like what I was just saying, if your puppy only plays with other puppies, they're going to think every dog plays like that, and acts like that. So it's good to introduce them to multiple different types of dogs.
Got it. And now with an older dog and a young puppy, I mean, obviously the puppy might piss off the older dog.
Mhm.
And you guys talk a lot about correction coming from the other dog.
Mhm.
When you're allowing your puppy to play with that older dog, like what kinds of corrections are you looking for? And when should you intervene
Yeah.
and kind of break it up?
Yeah, so before you allow that, I would make sure you trust your older dog, that they're not going to take corrections too far, or that you know to step in before the correction goes too far. Usually a correction looks like a warning bite, or sometimes a growl, or even walking away from the puppy. So I would step in if the older dog is giving a lot of signs that they don't want to interact, or they're giving corrections and your puppy isn't listening. Because
Mhm.
if I don't step in, then your older dog one is going to learn that you're not there to advocate for them, and the puppy's just going to keep running over them. And also, you want to be there to step in and also teach your puppy like what that correction means. So if your older dog gives them a warning bite or a growl, you stepping in and moving them away is helping them understand what to do when they encounter that.
Got it. Got it. Okay. Yeah, I feel like a lot of people just let it happen. Like older
Hmm.
dog, like they might have a resident dog and they're playing and it's getting rough, and the older dog just doesn't want that right now. And then
Hmm.
you don't intervene. So that's really important to just sit there and watch, like watch them
Right.
play, look for the cues, and
Hmm.
step in when you need to step in so you can advocate for your older dog and teach your new dog what that means, what your older dog was trying to tell them.
Hmm.
And that's going to create the relationship and build a healthy relationship between them. Everybody's going to be learning something. So when it comes to um, your first, like they said, what should the first 24 hours, 48 hours, week, and month look like with a new puppy in a new home? Do's and don'ts.
Yeah. So first 24 hours, like what we were talking about, I would do a lot of crate time. They need a lot of sleep. When they are out, they're on a leash or maybe tethered to something, on a play sport or on a bed. Um, that's what I would have your first few days slash weeks look like. And then adding in like teaching different things like leash pressure, doing some socialization. So making sure your puppy is exposed to like different sounds around the house, turning on the TV, opening, closing doors, garages, all of that. And then as your puppy gets older, then you can start giving them more freedom. So then maybe there's not as many naps in the day, and maybe you're dropping their leash more, or as they get even older, experimenting taking off the leash and seeing if they can handle that, and just do place without a leash. And it also really depends on your puppy. It
Yeah.
depends on how they're learning everything, and how much you're working with them.
Got it. Got it. Yeah. I feel like with so many people especially the people that I know that are adding new puppies, like just got new puppies and they're just
Hmm.
growing their family. It's so common for a family with a new puppy to just let it like write it out and think like my puppy's good. I don't need to do that.
Hmm.
We don't need the crate that much. The crate at night is all they need. Or maybe, when I leave the house, because we're potty training, and as soon as they're potty trained, we can take away the crate. We can't
Right.
tell you how often, and I'm speaking from someone that works in rescue, and my point of view is more into the dogs that we adopt out, and then a few months later we're getting those messages, oh, they're having this behavior, or this is starting to
Hmm.
show up, like how can I deal with this, because they haven't been doing what we told them. So just following this protocol, I guess, like with younger dogs or new dogs that you add to your family or adopt, it's kind of the same thing as rules and
Hmm.
boundaries, teaching them to respect your house, teaching them to respect you, your other dogs, if you have other dogs, your children, if you have children. And it's just giving them that confidence to even look at you for direction and understand that They're there to relax. They're there to look at you, and you're there to advocate for them. And it just creates such a great relationship. And this is why Mirror Image and even other trainers that we've had on, they are relationship based trainers. They are here to work on building your relationship with your dog. And whenever I tell people about that, especially our adopters, I'm like, we're not trick or treat trainers. It's not like you're going to send your dogs away for 2 weeks and they're going to come back all trained and great. You have to build a relationship with your dog. So if you have a puppy, think about training as it's like not even training. It's like really creating a
Oh, like
good, solid
lifestyle.
relation. Yeah, like a
Yeah.
lifestyle. And that's what you guys talk about all the time. And it's about creating that connection with your dog so they're connected with you. So if you send your dogs away because a lot of people do this, they do the training camp or the training boarding trains, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
for tiny puppies, like they send them away for the 2 to 3 week period, and then they expect that to fix all the problems and the dog to be like perfect forever. And that's not the case. Like they're going to pick up some commands, they might pick up some leash walking skills, but connection with you, that's not going to be given at those kinds of
Mm-hmm.
training. And a lot of times that can be good in some cases, but that's if you're also going to live that lifestyle with your dog of continuing through with building their relationship. And, it's just easier on you. It's like, it's easier for you to create this relationship with your dog where you guys are connected and they listen to you and they trust you, other than just let it slide. And then all of a sudden you have this like super, this dog that's super nervous about everything, and now you have to work on that anyways. And
Mm-hmm.
you work with all the two different sides of the spectrum. You work with tiny puppies a lot, and then you also
Mm-hmm.
work with those families with dogs that has those behaviors that have been created over time because
Right.
they never really provided any structure, right?
Right.
So yeah, so with your with your puppies, I know a lot of people also ask, and I think it's important that we emphasize on this, how soon or when is it safe for them to really start going out in public and you taking them out or maybe to a friend's house? Like, when should that be? Because we really
Yeah.
need to touch on this.
Um,
Yeah.
I think a lot of people and some vets have different opinions on that. I would say probably after they get their rabies vaccine, that's when I would start taking them out, or at least after like their first few like 2 rounds of shots.
2 rounds of
Um,
shots. Yeah.
yeah, but I mean, I for sure wouldn't be taking them to dog parks or anything at all, but especially not when they're that young, because even though maybe they've had all their vaccines, their immune system is still very weak since they're so small. So yeah, probably the first like 2 rounds of shots, I think that would be okay to take them out after that.
Yeah, yeah. And we
But
say like
obviously,
out,
yeah,
but not dog parks. Just go
right.
to the episode where we talk about dog parks and you guys can listen on that. Why
Hmm.
we just don't like dog parks. But a lot of people, the first thing they want to do is take the puppy everywhere. It's like, wait a minute, like let's take care of their health first and let them get healthy before you
Hmm.
start getting them out. But all of the things that we touched on today is a confidence builder, like Jill talked about in the beginning with her puppy classes. She's all about the confidence building and working them to become this confident dog that knows how to deal with stress, that knows how to see the world and actually rely on you as their owner for this direction. And everything that you do, from putting the leash on while they're in the house to not keep repeating yourself over and over, to giving
Hmm.
them structure and boundaries and a good routine, this, I feel like it's going to be harder for you than the dog, right? Because then the dogs
Right.
get it, like they're going to be fine, but
Hmm.
it's going to be hard for you to understand that this is fine for them. And I was one of those people that is just, it's hard for me with every single dog that I rescue. It's hard because they're going to, even if I bring them in, we're going to have to kind of reteach life for them. And then it's, for me, I feel terrible. I'm like, oh, I feel so bad. I want to like cuddle on them. I want them to feel, loved. I want to give them attention, but that's not doing anything but creating this lack of confidence and this build up anxiety because you can't be with them all the time. You can't just be there 100%
Right.
of the time and protect them from all these triggers that the world's going to bring in. And then we also talk about no furniture rule. And why is that important, Jill? Like no furniture. Lots of people don't care. They're like, I don't care if my dog jumps on furniture. But like, why is it important for the
Yeah.
dog to learn the no furniture rule?
Yeah, for a few different reasons. One, because space is a really big resource, and we don't want to give them too much access to our space when they're that young, especially not on their own agenda. So them hopping up on the couch and getting with us on their own. Also, because it can play into some separation anxiety. So if your puppy's already very, very clingy and you're still allowing them to come and jump up on the couch with you and you're giving them a whole bunch of affection up there, that's just nurturing that separation anxiety even more. Um, and then also, dogs think of elevation as status. So the higher up you are, the more powerful you feel. So I don't love it for that reason. Especially, I see that a lot with dogs who will like jump up on the couch and bark out the window. They feel very powerful up there. So I say, do not let them on the couch.
Mm.
Or even like I've walked into homes where it's a little dog and they'll jump up on the couch and bark at me to feel a little bit more powerful. So that's something that I say don't give it to them until they're a little bit older, until maybe they hit like social maturity or they check off this whole checklist of skills. That's we have a whole checklist that we send out to our clients, but it's things like listen the first time I tell them to do something. They walk right next to me on a leash. They understand the crate in place.
Mhm.
So all of those things before giving them the privilege of furniture.
Got it. Got it. And now with the furniture rule, would you say it's like no furniture or be intentional with the time you cuddle with them and then put them back? Or it's just like, just absolutely
Yeah.
no, or it's better to just get down to them to cuddle them when you want that moment? Like, what would you say?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, if you really want to spend time cuddling with your puppy, I would say get down on their level and do that.
Okay.
Um, but I wouldn't allow furniture at all for a little while, and then maybe you can play around with inviting them up there, like on your terms.
Okay.
Um, but yeah.
Got it. Got it. Okay. Well, with this episode, it was just a run through of all the things that a lot of people ask when it comes to puppies. And we also have the All About Puppies episodes that we recorded previously. And that one has tons of information as well. And it's a great reference if you have a new puppy, if you know anyone who has a new puppy, send them this episode. And if you are in the Atlanta area, Dallas, Marietta, I mean, anywhere near the center, they're in Dallas, Georgia. Jill does have her puppy classes, but they do fill up quickly because they take in small numbers. So if you'd like to learn more about the puppy class, go to mirrorimagek9.com. And Jill also does virtual consultations, so that's also very helpful with clients or families that are a little bit farther away. We always recommend the virtual because that gives you a time to just talk to someone. They'll, she'll really listen first and then give the recommendations based on your lifestyle. And all the checklist that you talked about, Jill, is that something they can get on the website, or is just the clients that, like, if they schedule a consultation,
Um,
will they get that checklist too?
Yes, they
Yeah.
will after a session. They'll get access to like all our resources. I think we may have something about it on the Mirror Image Instagram, but I'm not 100% sure.
Okay, got it. Yeah, but if you guys have any issues that you're dealing with right now because you have a new puppy, just go on the website and schedule that consultation, that first session, and you can do it virtually as well. And it will help a lot. And then you also get access to all the resources. So, but thank you guys so much for joining us. And if you enjoy the podcast, please make sure to leave us a review. It really means a lot to us. And if you have any questions that you would like for us to read in the next few episodes, just email us at info@thinklikeadogpodcast.com. You can also go to Mirror Image K9 and click on the tab of Think Like a Dog Podcast. And there you can also drop your questions, send a request to be one of our guests. And yeah, we'll go from there. But thank you so much for joining us, Joel. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Until next time. Bye.
Make sure to follow us on Instagram at Think Like a Dog Podcast and follow at Mirror Image Canine for training tips. If you have any questions, please reach out to us via email at info@thinklikeadogpodcast.com.